Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Time Out with Derek and Joe. For Joe Azalina, I'm Derek Gano. This week, we have some interesting topics. We plan on getting this video out on Monday, so please like and comment on video just to let us know that you enjoy what we're talking about. Joe, what do we got planned for this week?
So on tonight's show, we're going to be talking about high school football in the Lehigh Valley. Sorry for the people that are not in Lehigh Valley that like to listen to the show, but we'll get into why we're going to be doing that. There's a couple good headlines right now and some matchups we want to go over in the next couple weeks. Also, we'll be talking a little college football tonight and an area where I really enjoy it and follow it. So we're going to end up talking some top 10 in college football. And then the NFL, of course, the recap of week 2 already, Derek. We're into week 2, going into week 3, and let's get it kicked off. No pun intended. To a little high school football. So, how about the article that just came out recently about it's not just going to be families or senior football players' parents. It's going to be a pretty good amount of people, Derek, like me and you. We could go to see a football game.
Yeah, I saw that it was up in like the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania or something, right? And they denied Governor Wolf's motion to only have, I believe it was 250 outside in the stadium. It may have been 20 something for inside, but for football, when you think about it, especially when you have like Easton or Liberty's bands who are 250 in themselves, it doesn't really, besides cheerleaders and maybe some parents and some band, you don't really have many other people to allow in the stadium. So this will be pretty interesting to see where that goes. I don't think anything is definitely passed yet, right? There's yeah, so we'll have to see where that goes.
Well, it is going to be interesting to see, and a lot of the athletes do deserve this season, even if it's shortened, or which it is shortened season. But they get to play some rivalry games, which we'll get into in a little bit. But one big topic that we have to cover, and it's kind of near and dear to our hearts, even though we're former Crusader alumni. In Easton, there's really nothing more passionate and just all-encompassing as of their football stadium, which has been torn down. Cottingham Stadium, as we've known it in our lifetime, is no longer.
Yeah, and I do want to say, for those who may be listening who don't live in the Lehigh Valley, you can almost attest what the football is to Lehigh Valley close to what it would be like in Texas. It's a very integral part to each community. Especially when you have, what do we have, 4 or 5 teams just in Bethlehem, Bethlehem Catholic, Freedom, Liberty, Notre Dame, and then Easton and Wilson are blocks away from each other. But either way, so yes, I grew up going with Dad to a lot of Easton games. I went to a lot more Easton games than I did Notre Dame games, honestly. And going to Cottingham Stadium, they say, is always like you could feel the ghosts of Cottingham down there, given the extra boost to the players. And it's you kind of attest it like to like a Lambeau Field of high school football. It's you always wanted to go to play there, and even being the away team, I'm sure now when you get into like the parking and stuff like that, yeah, I'm sure people hate going there, but it will be interesting to see. Now, I don't know how many millions of dollars, a lot of millions,
I have the numbers
are going into. You do? Okay, so you'll get into it as to how much money is going into the stadium, but I don't know, something about the brick and the old metal benches, and it just brought a different feel to it. And I hope that doesn't really go away. And I feel like it may, if it kind of turns into a hoity-toity stadium like
Too much.
the
Yeah.
current the current basketball stadium is, that's not even close to the high school anymore.
Right. Right.
So I guess we'll see. What do the numbers look like? I'm kind of interested.
Well, and also I have to remind me and you, like we're, well, I'm in my 30s, and you're not too far off, right? In there too.
Almost.
Yeah, right. So, but just saying that. That being said, my grandmother attended Easton High School many years ago. So close to 100 years at Cunningham Stadium has had fans in that venue, which is unreal to think about. Now, the big number is what we're just discussing, right? $15.9 million.
Wow.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And Easton is, and I'm not, listen, I work for the school district, so I can't really say too much. But I want to say that those fields away in Penn Highway, a lot of people are still upset about those. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for the Easton area. But the stadium, I hope you're right. I hope it's not hoity-toity. I hope it's done well. I hope it's going to always be considered Cunningham too, right? But it's going to be interesting. It's set to be unveiled next year. So cross our fingers
Now,
with COVID.
Exactly. That was exactly the thought that came in my head. Now I thought
like,
of I thought of a lot of people stopped going to high school games. And I know especially in Easton, because my dad had been going over one or two games a year the past few years, and not as many people go as when even when I was younger, when the place was packed for a big game. Is that because you can see it on TV? Yeah, I'm sure. So maybe that was another reason to draw more people back to the stadium, was to build this huge stadium. Well, and then I guess you have to see where, obviously they were doing it before this whole COVID thing. So you have to wonder, will that counterbalance the COVID effect of people not wanting to go out to see these games as opposed to seeing them on TV? We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
It should be an interesting when it comes out next year. You said, huh?
I thought 2022, but the article that I read did say 2021. So we'll go with that. We'll go with that as I think it's a pretty good source. All right. Well, we're gonna stick with high school for the next few minutes, and let's talk about tonight. Our alma mater, the Notre Dame Crusaders, are hosting the visiting Salisbury Falcons, and this game could be interesting. Both sides talented. It might come down to a big play late in the game. Notre Dame's got a quarterback that's a great athlete in Colin Quintano. He's only a sophomore. We didn't see that talent when we were out there.
If for those who have been following since show number 1, he came up in the first show about the on the baseball team. So it shows the amount of talent that he has. And now Notre Dame is a different Notre Dame from when I was there, at least. I don't know what they were like when you were there. They're pretty high flying now, as opposed to, I think we had one victory in the 4 years that I was there.
0 for me.
You had 0? Well,
we were terrible. We were terrible, Derek.
Yeah, they've come a long way. So
Coach Phil Stanball has done a good job with, you're right, high flying offense. They just seem to really make some big plays in the offense, and then the defense just seems to stop when they need stops. I'm not saying they're not going to let up points. You did tell me off air that Salisbury's got a pretty good quarterback themselves.
I was just going to say, ever since the Pius X combination, it seems like the football team really stepped up a little bit. Now, I did wonder, so Notre Dame is currently number 9 in the Class 3A state rankings, so they are no fluke.
In football.
They have a very good running back, Matt Frowen, who almost rushed for 1,200 yards last year, 14 touchdowns. Apparently, while injured, having a bum ankle, so they've said he's really ready to go and ready to not, as you can imagine, being on a bum ankle all season and
Young
still
kid.
getting 1,200 yards. I'm sure you really want to just see what you can do. But you mentioned, yeah, Salisbury has a very good quarterback, Quentin Steffens, who threw for 1,900 yards, 19 touchdowns. He has a lot of weapons back, supposedly, at the Salisbury offense. Supposed to be middle of the road in the Colonial League out of 12 teams, maybe 4 or 5. So it should be a pretty high-flying game tonight. I guess we'll see who puts up the most points is probably where it's going to end up going.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And just an aside, Notre Dame has a receiver and D-back that I know a little bit about him. He is a St. James product, Joe Galley. He actually is a pretty decent basketball player too. So again, there's talent there. I wish them well as the season continues, and they have a chance to do some damage in playoffs when we get to that point too. So we'll keep an eye on the Crusaders as always. The second game we have coming up on October 2nd, which is really close now. We're getting to the beginning of October. The Central Catholic Vikings are taking on the Parkland Trojans at Parkland. I do know Parkland was pretty good last year, but they took a step backwards. They lost a lot of athletes. But Central Catholics, they're coaching their second year. So do you have anything on,
Yeah.
either?
So obviously, for those that don't know, a lot of the EPC teams have been playing up in the Mountain Valley the past couple years. Allen and Deerfield, and I believe Northampton most recently, played up in the Mountain Valley with those teams. And now with the whole COVID thing going on, they moved everyone in the similar area into the same divisions. The divisions are going to consist of Easton, Freedom, Bethlehem Catholic, Northampton, Nazareth, and Liberty. And then in the Lehigh County division is Parkland, Central Catholic, Emmaus, Whitehall, Allen, and Deerfield. Point being, if these were the divisions last year, Parkland would have ran away with it because no one in their division was remotely, I believe Central was the only team that finished above 500, and they were 500. So I believe Central is really going to give them a run for it this year. You did say Parkland lost some. They do have Isaiah Rico, who's their running back. He ran for 1,650 rushing yards and 19 touchdowns last year.
Big kid,
whereas, very big. I noticed him in the pictures. Won't be easy to tackle.
Watching him. Yeah, he's a
the quarterback for Central, Matt Rauscher, looks like he can do it all. 2,000 passing yards, 500 rushing yards, 28 total touchdowns. So I believe it seems like Central is going to be the one to test Parkland in that division this year. So it's going to start right away for both teams. Now, Central did play, I believe it was last week, against Whitehall. Yeah. So they, at least not being their first game, maybe it gets them going a little bit.
And Parkland also turns out athletes like Massaquoi of Michigan, stuff like that. Yeah. But other than that, that's all we got on that game. We're going to move forward to the same day, the second. It's going to be the Northampton Concord Kids and the Freedom Patriots. And all I got here is that Freedom is like Notre Dame. They've gotten really good really fast. Their coach, Jason Roeder, has become a really good, actually with Easton ties, if we go there, actually, they faced off in some, his son played for Easton at one time as a D-back. Mm-hmm. And actually went to the same elementary school as me and you two, Roeder, E.J. Roeder, if you know that name. I don't know if it's.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
I don't know. I didn't know.
By Mrs. Birch, too, by the way. Shout out to her. She always listens to our show. Thanks, Mrs. Birch, for listening to the Timeout Show. No, but Freedom really does have talent, running back. I'm sure you might have a receiver down, the quarterback. Like, they're just really, really talented. And I think the Freedom Patriots are going to have something to say about the league this year. They're a good team.
Yeah, they've had a couple good quarterbacks in a row now. I remember it was Joe Young a couple years ago who was a very a skinnier, really fast quarterback, and they've been at the top of the league for quite a few years now. Now I have a Matt Russin, who was actually the third string running back last season, but he had 700 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns, 8 yards a carry for a third string running back. So
That's
if you
pretty
can
good.
imagine, he's going to be the guy this year.
Yeah,
That's
I hope
going to
so.
really extend, and he's going to be having a lot of opportunity. That's for sure. Now
Yeah.
playing Northampton, uh, their quarterback Joe Kerbacher, he had 29 touchdowns last year, just passing. Um, Now they did graduate 2 receivers, and I mentioned already how they had a lighter schedule last year. They were up in the Mountain Valley Conference, which is normally known not to have as much talent as is in this specific area, as well as Allen and Deerf who were up there. So
Right.
having a schedule against an Easton and Liberty and Freedom, Bethlehem Catholic, there's no slouch. Nazareth was the one who won the districts last
They're
year.
so good. We're
So
not going to mention them much, but Nazareth's a team to watch out for too. We didn't have the
yeah,
matchup we wanted, but yeah, Molesky and that crew, they're get at Penn State right
you
now.
can't
That's
count them
imagine.
out. Yeah. So there's going to be a lot of not a lot of easy games for Northampton this year, so we'll see how they adjust to the different schedule. But it should that Northampton division looks like it could be pretty stacked. Great games all season long. Easton is obvious. We're going to talk about Easton later, and Freedom. Bethlehem Catholic hasn't been a slouch for the past however long.
Whitehall.
And Nazareth, obviously, you never can count out Liberty. So it should be a very interesting division.
Also, before we move on to the next game, I have to tell you too that like after Halloween, usually the season's over, which it will be close to that. But we could come back with a show talking a little more about this because it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out, right? Mm-hmm. So we'll talk about that too. Anyway, we got on the 3rd, the next day, Liberty plays Easton, and Derek, because of no home field, Easton's the home team on the scoreboard, but Liberty's also a home team in a way. Like, the only thing that's be different is probably locker rooms and jerseys, home and away. When you mention Easton, you got to mention Najee Adams. He's already committed to a school. I can't remember off the top of my head, but really good. And then junior quarterback Cole Transu, if I'm not mistaken, sophomore, junior, I always forget which one, but he's shown he can throw the ball. But Easton's always running the football. If they do that and they can play defense pretty well, I think they'll give Liberty all they can handle. And Liberty's going to be good. They always have athletes on the field.
Yeah, and that's always been Easton's MO, maybe to a fault, to where we're going to stuff it with the trap down your throat. Our offensive line is going to best your defensive line, and we're going to try to run the ball. That's how it's been. Now, play calling may have changed a little bit since Steve Schiffert has been there when there was a lot of running. So I know the past few years now they've put a lot more passing into the offense, but how can you not want to give Najee Adams the ball every time you run a play? Almost 1,900 yards, 26 rushing touchdowns he had last year.
As a junior. He was a junior last year.
Yeah. 7 yards a carry. If you get 7 yards a carry, I was like, well, you're going to get a touchdown every time. No one's going to stop you. So I have to think the offense is going to revolve around him without question. No reason not to. I do want to mention for Liberty, probably going to butcher the name, but let's try it out. Kicker Sander Sahidek, who is a Penn State recruit. Yep, he is a Penn State recruit. He had which is an EPC record 53-yard field goal last year. So you don't really see many kickers in this area. Usually you see a lot of teams going for 2 because they don't have a kicker. So I think Easton is supposed to be a top, Liberty on the bottom of the division. So I think it's more just interesting that Easton's going to be playing a home game at Liberty.
Be interesting.
And then for all those who love the Battle of the Bands, Easton and Liberty Battle of the Bands is always a treat.
Yeah, I don't know
if we're able to get there.
Well, that's the thing. And by October 3rd, which is only maybe like not even, it's a week now. Listen, you probably should let the bands in and the cheerleaders, but if you're around all the fans and you're having all these people, and it's a mess. You're right. If we get there, it's perfect. All right. So October 9th, Whitehall versus Parkland at Parkland. To me, that just shows you again how, like you said earlier, the Allentown portion of the LVC or EPC, whatever you want to call it, both teams were really talented and both teams can turn out NFL players, as we've seen.
Yeah, well, I'm interested, and we talked before about I'm interested to see how Matt Seneca does in his second year at Whitehall. Obviously, he's no dummy. He played at Penn State and he had a tough time last year, but there's supposedly a lot of talent coming back. A senior they have coming back is Angelo Dodonna, might be a guy to look at, starting running back and starting linebacker. Maybe a tough game with Parkland, but like I said, in that division you have Allen, who is notoriously on the bottom of the division. You have Deerhoff, who's notoriously at the bottom. If they can beat an Emmaus and maybe play with the Central, you never know. They're right up there. You never know in every week in a EPC matchup, that's for sure.
Also, I talked to you yesterday about this, and I remembered the name I was thinking of. Parkland graduate, and I feel like he was either at Penn State or Ohio State, running back Austin Scott.
Yes.
Remember that name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he was a great athlete from Parkland. So I wanted to throw that out there. The last game, and then we're going to go to college, is the Emmaus Green Hornets on the 17th of October, taking on the Central Catholic Vikings. And Garrett, the one thing we did talk about, and the one thing we want to tell our listeners is the storyline of Coach Harold Fairclough going from Central to Emmaus, and he'll be taking his Green Hornets to face his old team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they have a very good running back. Not quite the numbers of Easton's Najee Adams, but Brandon Kameyer had 1,600 yards and 27 touchdowns last season. So it really seems like they run the ball a lot. And again, we talked about Central, so that division is going to be very interesting. I did want to point out, I think the article may have come out now. Today is Friday, so a day or two ago, about how the PIAA may be moving, or is most likely moving forward with the state championships, but District 11 may decide to opt out of the districts. And
you wonder too if that has something to do with them kind of realizing that as much as schools have gone pretty good so far, that they don't see that these schools might not be in come Thanksgiving Day break. Like, we might be out for a couple months again, or the rest of the year, God forbid that would happen. But just saying that, COVID's still here, and people have to realize that, and everybody's got to be more careful. You got to be really careful. So,
and I will say, so Parkland is the number 10 team in the 6A state rankings, and Easton is the number 7 team in the 6A rankings. So Nazareth Easton has an honorable mention. So I would love to see that game. If it means state title or a state run, that's fine. I would love to see that game between Parkland and Easton, most likely, because that's most likely where we're going.
Easton, Notre Dame, Parkland, and Nazareth. They're the 4 teams I think that we're gonna be talking about come October 31st or that time period. So anyway, that's probably it for right now. The high school landscape.
So the first thing we're going to talk about for college is obviously we're a couple weeks in now. There has been news that the Big Ten may be starting up in October. They were previously looking at not even playing a season, if not playing it in the spring. There was, I think, just news today maybe that the Pac-12 is it the Pac-12 still? I think it's the Pac-12. Pac-12 is moving forward with a season as well. I believe in November. So we just have the current standings. As far as there's not going to be Big Ten teams, Pac-12 teams in it because, number one, I assume nobody's seen them, so there's no reason to put them in the standings, and it's just based on a couple games that we've seen. Even the SEC hasn't started, so this is really more of a preseason top 10 list.
We're gonna start here with the number 10 team, and we're gonna go to the Big 12. I'm pretty sure they're still in the Big 12. The Texas A&M Aggies. I don't think they moved. To be honest, when I look at Texas A&M, I really just remember Johnny Manziel. But for the team right now, I mean, when you're in the top 10, you're definitely doing something right. I don't have a lot of really good information, to be totally honest. That happens with a couple of these teams. But no, Texas A&M, they win ball games. They're going to be in the thick of things. I just don't know if they're as good as some of these other teams.
Yeah, and I think that's more of a just their league, that if they can beat a team like Texas or Oklahoma, or if they can get by them, then they're going to be the one.
Right, out of the Big 12.
Now, as far as if they can beat those teams, that's hard to tell. We don't know a ton about Texas A&M, but they're not. It doesn't seem like they're to be favored over teams like Texas and Oklahoma.
Right, and you look at number 9. That was a good segue, Derek. Number 9, the Big 12, is the Texas Longhorns, and one guy comes right to mind. He's been there for a long time, and that's quarterback Sam Ehlinger, who has done pretty good, and he's a pretty good leader now, as he's already. If he's not a junior, I think he's definitely an upperclassman, junior, senior.
He's a senior this year. Yeah, okay. He started 33 games now. He's has 39 touchdowns, and he had 4,300 all-purpose yards last year.
Good runner.
He's definitely he seems like one of the top guys to look at in terms of Heisman. It's always usually a quarterback, so it would be interested to see if they can. They've kind of struggled the past bunch of years getting by Oklahoma. So you wonder if this is finally the year that they'll be, with them having a senior and then Oklahoma having a young quarterback, maybe this will be the time that they can finally get by them.
Great point, but we will be hearing about Oklahoma later, and I'm going to probably say no to that, but we'll be talking about them. The number 8 team is from the SEC. They haven't started yet, but they're talented, and we saw a lot of them last year, and that's the Auburn Tigers. And I remember saying this team likes to hit people. They're a really good defensive football team. Again, offensively, they have a decent quarterback in Nix. He's a young kid. He's only a sophomore now, but they got to make plays, and you're playing against the big boys. Like you're not playing Abilene Christian, or you're playing LSU, Florida. On a week to week basis. You're playing some tough games. So Auburn and 8, I guess. It'll depend on what they can do in the conference.
Auburn always has there's always a lot of talent, and you always look to that Alabama and Auburn game. Because ultimately, it's over the past few years, it seems like whoever wins that game is in the championship running. So I'm sure that'll be another big game again this year, Auburn and Alabama.
Oh yeah, the Iron Bowl, as they call it, always a good spectacle. Number 7, I can go on and on about number 7, but that is my Notre Dame Fighting Irish out of the ACC for this year. We'll see where that goes. Led by 2 talented running backs. Chris Tyree is a 4-star freshman, and Kyron Williams is a sophomore, and they're both really good, and they've shown up both 2 weeks in a row now. We'll see what they can do in the next coming weeks. Notre Dame does not play Wake Forest this Saturday, tomorrow, because of COVID, of course. Ian Book will be the guy to watch, though. He can literally make you crazy. He is seriously so inconsistent. You know, they're gonna be fine. It's gonna be coming down to them in Clemson, I'm sure. But
yeah,
I'll close my eyes on that one. But yeah, that's, you know, Notre Dame.
Yeah, and obviously, did you mention that they're in the ACC this year? So that'll be interesting. Not playing the normal off schedule that they usually do.
Might help them. It might help them.
Yeah. When you get to play teams like Duke, you know, and
North Carolina,
and Virginia,
right.
Yeah,
Georgia Tech,
it could benefit. Yeah,
it reminds you of ACC basketball. It reminds you of ACC basketball. That's what it kind of it really does. It reminds you, except for it's on a football field and not a basketball court.
Yeah.
You know, but Notre Dame, yeah, they come in at 7, and we'll follow them, I'm sure, as we go on the weeks to come. Number 6, and we did talk about this, like LSU 6. Rewind the tape. They won the national title. I know the first 5 are really good, but I kind of am having a problem with them at 6. But yeah, defending champs. Ogeron's a great coach. Coach O, they love him there.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Jefferson's a guy that just left, talented receiver. They have another one there. His name escapes me right now. But
yes, so I'll just jump in. It's Jamar Chase is the talented receiver who's there. He did opt out this season. He is one of the best receivers, and maybe that's why they're bumped down a little bit here. But once again, it's still LSU. There's a ton of talent there. I see a Jabril Cox is one of their top running back or linebackers, 2-time All-American at North Dakota State. He transferred. You don't see many of those. And transferred from North Dakota State to LSU. North Dakota State is a very good. Well, they used to be called 1AA. FCS is the name. I think they
good at basketball. They're good at basketball.
Yeah. So I guess we'll see. Like you said, very talented, very smart coach. So they also have one of the best cornerbacks in the country, Derek Stingley Jr., top cornerback. So I guess we'll see. It should be obviously with Joe Burrow leaving and all of them, Edwards-Helaire leaving.
Right,
it could be tough to
no Jamar Chase. That's tough. That's 3 guys you got to make up for. Yeah. Number 5 is the Florida Gators, and all I know is their coach is Jim McElwain. I'm pretty sure. But other than that, they're in the SEC. They got to play Bama. They got to play Auburn. The beat goes on. But when Florida's good, Florida's really good, and I feel like this will be interesting to see how good they're going to be this year. They always have a really good running back. Usually going back to the days of Fred Taylor, you know, they have guys that always carry the ball well. I think sometimes for Florida, it depends on their other skill positions. So do they have enough at receiver? Do they have enough at tight end? And then how's the defense going to be?
Yeah, and just being in the SEC again with the LSUs and the Georgias and the Alabamas, there's never an off week almost when you're playing those tough teams. So we'll have to see where Florida shakes up. They haven't really been a elite team for quite a while now, maybe even since the years of Tim Tebow. So you would like to see Florida getting back up there, getting the Gator Chomp going again with however many people are in the stands. So yeah, we'll see how they finish up in the SEC.
Yeah. And then number four is the SEC also, and it's the SEC heavy, of course, but it's the Georgia Bulldogs. And losing Jake Fromm's a problem. Not getting Justin Fields is another issue. But I'm sure somebody's going to be the quarterback. They're going to have somebody out there throwing the ball around. And Derek, Sony Michelle, DeAndre Swift now, and Todd Gurley. That is all Georgia running backs. That's just unreal in the NFL. So here you go now. Somebody's coming up. They're going to have somebody's going to take the reins from those guys. And, Georgia will be just fine. I'm not sure if they'll finish at 4, but they're going to be fine.
Yeah, they're always a tough-nosed team, especially over the past few years. They don't have over-the-top talent that you see at Alabama, but they always seem to be there, and maybe just a tiny notch below. You've seen them in the number 3 slot in the playoff and the number 4 slot a lot, or just being left out. And they can never really get over that hump of the Alabama and we just got an Amber Alert.
Me too, Derek. Me too.
But it should be interesting to see where they wind up, and if they can finally get over that hump of Alabama and Clemson, who have been in the championship for however many years.
It would be interesting to see a Notre Dame, Clemson, Georgia, Alabama. That'd be interesting. It would be someone different.
Yeah.
But number 3, and I'm telling you, I love this kid. And we talked about him indirectly when we talked about, I think it was maybe Texas or A&M, because they're in the Big 12. It's Oklahoma Sooners, led by freshmen. And remember, he's following Mayfield. He's following Murray. Freshman quarterback, remember the name, Spencer Rattler. I watched the show. I want to give a shout out to Netflix. It's called Quarterback One. They follow these guys around. Listen, he's a jokester. He looks arrogant, but at the heart of it, he's a football player. He's really good. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do now. I'm excited to watch him on the field now. 5 touchdowns in his first game. That's pretty good.
And
not scared.
Even with Kingsbury gone, no, was it Cliff Kingsbury who was
no, and I thought of the name and I wrote it down. Lincoln Riley.
Lincoln Riley is there. And they just keep churning out quarterbacks. You had Baker, then you went to Jalen Hurts, and we'll see. A jury's still out, I guess, on both of them. You don't know, at least in the NFL, Baker Mayfield, he's got a lot of extra baggage, and then Hurts. You don't know if he maybe takes
Kyler Murray too.
Philadelphia at some point. Kyler Murray.
Another one. He had 3 of them.
And, yeah, they just keep churning him out. So he looks like the next one, and looks like he may even be the best of all of them.
He's really athletic, and he can throw a football. It was unreal to watch that show and just watch. And he's competitive. He's real competitive. So you got to be when you're playing major college football. But, yeah, I'm really excited to watch him. And I have Oklahoma. Yeah, they're going to be there in the end. Alabama, number 2. And what do you say? Nick Saban, we can go on forever about Alabama. We have the NFL, and people can't wait to hear about it, right? So, no, Alabama, Nick Saban, and a lot of talent. We don't, they're number 2. They're going to be, could be number 1, too, probably. But, yeah.
Always top players. They just continue to churn them out. They leave, and more come back.
They reload.
We talked in recent episode about college players that came out, and Terry Judy and Harry Ruggs are both receivers who came from Alabama. Well, guess what? Now they have Devonta Smith, who is who had 14 touchdowns last year, and they just keep churning them out. And
Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, there's 2 more names.
Yeah, now Najee Harris is their running back, and he rushed for 100 yards or more 6 times last season. Scored 20 touchdowns. They just continue to churn them out, and just because the main talent just goes there. And
Yeah.
they may not have the stud that our number one team has, but I think there may be enough secondary talent to put them past Clemson, perhaps. But
Yeah. Well,
I don't really see it going anywhere else besides Clemson and Alabama once again.
Georgia, Notre Dame, and Oklahoma might be able to make a case, but I think you're right. LSU lost too much. Florida probably not as talented. We're gonna see. You got to play the games, but Clemson, Dabo Sweeney, Trevor Lawrence, Travis and Etienne, they're just again more talent. Like these guys, they win football games. That's what they do, and their defense is pretty good too. DeMarcus Lawrence is I'm pretty sure is a Clemson lineman. Like. Hunter Renfrow in the NFL with the Raiders now. Like, there's just T. Higgins just drafted. Like, you just keep going and going. It's a talented program, and I don't like them, but it's a talented program. Got to give them the props.
Now, I will say, with the Big Ten coming back, that could throw a wrench into things. Ohio State seems to be the class once again. They have Fields, the quarterback, who is most likely a Heisman candidate. But you got Penn State there, you got Michigan, you got Wisconsin, the normals. Right. So, and we'll see. I would think Ohio State might jump into the top 5 if they were to get ranked. Maybe Penn State just outside the top 10, something like that. But we'll see when they come in. I don't know much about the Pac-12, if they have any that would be jumping in there. And based on previous years, I would say not, but should be an interesting year. That's for sure. We're just getting started.
Exactly.
So we're going to move on to our final topic of the day, and that was running through our second tier of football. We've gone through high school, we've gone through college. Let's do a little NFL. And we're going to run through week 2 as well as one game from week 3 since that was last night on Thursday. But we're going to run through week 2 and the stats and scores of each of those games. We're going to start with the Thursday night game, which was a battle of the previous 2 number 1 picks, correct? Baker Mayfield and, oh my goodness, Joe Burrow. And that was at Cleveland. The Browns took down the Bengals 35-30. Very good game from Joe Burrow, but ultimately Mayfield was the one who came out on top.
Yeah, and also Nick Chubb, who's a really good young running back. He actually 2 scores too and rushed for 124 yards. And like we were just talking about in college, Derek, I'm pretty sure he went to Georgia.
Yes, he did.
Add to the Georgia stable of running backs. But yeah, no, the Browns with a nice win. They said it, Beckham and Hooper and Landry. If you get those guys involved, Baker might have a good year, and they're 1-1. So important game for the Bengals this weekend against the Eagles. We'll see what they can get a win.
Yeah, loser goes to 0-3.
Right, and the Eagles have a lot more crazy games coming up too, so they better win. Well, game number 2 featured a Sunday night battle, and it was the New York Giants. Sunday afternoon, the Giants and the Bears, and the Bears ended up going to 2-0 with a 17-13 victory. And Trubisky 2 touchdown passes. Derek, that wasn't the story of the game. The Giants lost probably their best player.
Yeah, pretty unfortunate. Barkley went down again. Such a great guy, and
I love Saquon Barkley.
Of course, now it gets people thinking, well, is he fragile? So, and that's a shame, because I know you can see a lot of the highlights on Sports Center and stuff that they put up about how big this guy is, and he puts a lot of effort in, and he went down again. He's done for the season. So it's going to be a rough go for the Giants. We'll be honest here. A lot's going to be put on Daniel Jones, which is not good with the offensive cast that he has there. I believe I said last week, people like Sterling Shepard, Golden Tate, they're not really guys who they can throw the ball to and he can go up and get it. So I know they are bringing in an old name, Devonta Freeman, and he was good a couple years ago, but I think he's kind of past his prime, very pinball like. But we'll see. We'll see where the Giants can go. Probably a downward season from here. The Bears start off 2-0. Hey, Trubisky is the reason they're winning some games, so hats off to him. I didn't have a lot of faith in him. I guess we'll see when they don't play teams like the Lions and the Bears, and we'll see how they move forward. Our next game here was a very shootout of a game with the Dallas Cowboys and the Atlanta Falcons. I will say I got very excited seeing this box score with my MVP choice, Dak Prescott, throwing for 450 yards, Joe, and coming back to defeat the Falcons 40-39.
Yeah, listen. He had a great game. They really did have a good game. The Falcons, though, were in front for most of the game, but the Cowboys really turned it on late. Dallas was probably a few plays away from being 0-2 here.
Yeah.
But no, that's a big win for them, and they got to be laughing a little bit right now. Even though karma, don't laugh too hard because we've seen the Eagles struggle, and they could come back here. But a pivotal game for them again on Sunday. But yeah, Dallas, nice win, throwing up all those points, and a great kick by Greg Zuerlein. I mean, it was really, really nice win for the Cowboys. Yeah. Game number 3 featured your Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field against the Detroit Lions. And I know personally you wanted the Packers to win. You got that wish, but the Lions definitely are one of your teams that you thought with Matthew Stafford and Marvin Jones and the cast of characters, you thought maybe they could have a better year. Well, right now they're licking their wounds. They're 0-2 like the Eagles. 42 Packers, 21 Lions. And Joe's had a big day, Derek. It just wasn't big enough.
Yeah, we're really putting up points. The Packers are really putting up points. Yeah, my Lions pick isn't looking too hot right now. I guess we'll see if they pick up some steam. They were up 14-3. I'll give them that at one point in the game. But Aaron Jones has played very well so far this season. 168 yards, 2 touchdowns, another 68 yards and a touchdown. Receiving, Rodgers playing very well. The defense played pretty well too, and now I will say Matt Stafford has not had his top receiver Kenny Golladay yet, so maybe that will help their offense a little bit, but that doesn't really do much for their defense besides going a lot of 3 and outs that may tire the defense out a little bit. But Packers really moving forward and gaining some steam. 42 points. I believe no, they didn't. I don't think they quite hit. No, I believe they had 41 in the first game. So 2 40-point games. That's pretty good for the Packers to start. The Tennessee Titans then took on the Jacksonville Jaguars at home. Big game from Gardner Minshew, but Titans came out with the win, 33-30. That's a nice win for the Titans after it looks like they were leading the whole game, but a little bit of a comeback by the Jags, and they held them off to get that victory.
Yeah, and again, I don't have Derrick Henry's stats, but I'm pretty sure he scored 1 touchdown, rushed for a lot of yards. But again, the kicker, Steven Gostkowski, 49 yards, Derek, to win the game. I mean, they go to 2-0, and Ryan Tannehill is loving Tennessee right now. But no, good job. They scored 24 points in 2 quarters, so that's going to win you a lot of football games if you can score that many points.
Yeah.
The next game is the Minnesota Vikings, who, Derek, I can't understand for the life of me what Kirk Cousins is doing out there, but he's driving me nuts because I need Adam Thielen to catch the ball a lot, and it's not happening right now. But the Colts 28, the Vikings 11, and Jonathan Taylor, the rookie running back out of Wisconsin, he did a good job, and he's going to be a workhorse. What do you say? Philip Rivers needs to just manage the game and give the ball to Taylor, it looks like.
Yeah. Rivers seems to be more of a game manager at this point in his career, and you can't really blame him. Yeah, Jonathan Taylor from Wisconsin, he looked pretty good. He scored he got 100 yards and a touchdown, a couple catches. Now, I kind of said over the past few weeks, I wasn't a huge fan of the Vikings this year. I really don't like Kirk Cousins. He just disappears in games, and if you want to be paid big money like he is, you can't disappear in games. He's 11 of 26 he was passing, no touchdowns, 113 yards, 3 picks, 3 sacks. Now I'm sure some of those sacks weren't his fault, but
Contract's
maybe not
ridiculous.
even interceptions. But yeah, for all the money he's making, I did say I think the Diggs movement to Buffalo is really going to affect him, because I don't know that they have anyone besides Thielen. You see, Thielen got 8 targets in this game, 8 of his 26. So maybe there's just not a lot there. Yeah, maybe that's just not enough there, and that's the reason why he's struggling a little bit. And I don't know that they can really. The Packers are obviously 2-0. The Bears are 2-0. I don't know if they're going to be able to catch up to that. It's only 2 games, but they just don't look good, and that's the thing that's going to hurt them, I think.
Absolutely.
The next game we have here is the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins. The Buffalo Bills went to Miami and defeated the Dolphins 31-28. Another big game from Josh Allen, and maybe that's the Stephon Diggs effect. Maybe the Cousins game went over to Buffalo and Josh Allen.
I like Allen. He's young. I mean, he threw for 417 yards in this game. The only quarter they didn't score was the third. They have a decent running game, but yeah, Diggs, John Brown, they have a really decent crew there. I'm sticking with what I said early on. Buffalo beats the Patriots out for the division. I just like that Buffalo Bills team. Miami, we'll get to them a little bit, but they're a tough loss, but they put up 28 points. So if you're a Miami fan, granted, 2 of those are field goals, but still, they're going to have some big contributors with Fitzpatrick, and then when Tua finally comes in, but good win by Buffalo. All right, the San Francisco 49ers defeated the New York Jets 31-13, and they needed this win, Derek. They couldn't start off 0-2. The Jets at 0-2, now the Niners at 1-1. What do you think about Garoppolo, Bosa, and Mostert? They have one thing in common, Derek. Tell us what that might be.
What's that? They're all Super Bowl champion, or they all got hurt? That was the thing. They all got hurt.
They all got hurt.
Well, yeah, and I don't know what it's looking like for Garoppolo going forward. I think he may be playing. Luckily for the Niners, they have a lot of running backs. Now, before Mostert even became a guy last year, Jerick McKinnon was the one who got the contract and was supposed to be the guy in San Francisco. So now he gets his chance, as well as Tevin Coleman, who was there last year. I think they'll be fine. You saw a big game out of Jordan Reed, who was a big tight end for a couple years in Washington. He's now playing for San Francisco, and George Kittle, their top tight end, didn't play. So that made room for Jordan Reed, and he had 2 touchdown catches. I mean, the Jets, it's tough.
They're so bad.
Le'Veon Bell is injured. Crowder, their top receiver, is out. Pittman, I believe, or Brashad Perriman was their other receiver. He went down. They're really struggling. Frank Gore is their top running back, who's, I mean, God bless Frank. He's 35 years old and
Yeah.
he's still carrying the ball 20 times in a game. But it's tough. It's got to be tough for Sam Darnold's development when you don't have a lot around him.
Derek, I got a question for you. Thinking about the Jets, do you roll the dice and say, all right, like you, Darnold, you might not be the answer long term, and do you tank the season and go get Trevor Lawrence?
No, I wouldn't. No, I would not. I'm not in favor of tanking the season ever, but
Me either.
if they were, I would. I don't think so, because Darnold has shown stuff. It's just that there's no one else there. They need the rest. They tried getting, obviously, Le'Veon Bell in there to get a very good running back. Well, he goes down injured. They don't have a lot of receivers.
Denzel Mims is okay, but they need Crowder. You're right. They need guys that stay healthy and then be on the field and somehow work it out.
Right.
But I don't know. We'll see. I mean, the Jets are just going to be interesting to be. The Jets and Dolphins will be really interesting to see who's going to be the worst off,
Which brings us to our next game, and that was the LA Rams putting up a lot of points in Philadelphia, 37-19. They took down the Eagles, and Jared Goff looked good, and
Malcolm Brown looked
Carson
good.
Wentz. Then there was Carson Wentz, I guess, right?
It is puzzling to me why they don't get the tight ends more involved. Both of them are so good. Get the ball to Sanders any way you can. I don't care if you throw him out on the backfield. God, put him in do it out to him. There's the things they got to do. They got to fix this, because there's no way the Eagles are starting the season 0-5. They can't, and again, I'm not an Eagles fan, but I just have to say that I think that there's too much talent on this football team to play like this. It's just, but Joe Burrow and the Bengals are coming, so we'll see if they can right the ship, as they say. That being said, we're going to move on, and we're going to go to the Denver Broncos, who now are 0-2 because they lost to the 2-0 Pittsburgh Steelers, 26-21. Derek, you think of Pittsburgh, you think of Roethlisberger, but a guy that's emerged out of Pittsburgh, and I think a name that we have to really remember is Juju Smith-Schuster, former USC standout. Do you think he could be the number one if he's not already?
Oh, I'm sure he is. Yeah. And he struggled a little bit last season with Roethlisberger going down, because they didn't really have the top lineup there, or the top quarterbacks play there, and it was tough for him last year. But he had 7 catches today, or this week, and Deontay Johnson had 90 yards. James Conner is another name to look out for. Very tough runner out of Pittsburgh. He 100 yards. Too. He's healthy. Yes. For anyone who doesn't know James Conner's story, please go out and read up on that. Very inspirational. Tough game for the Broncos again. Drew Lock went down injured, so they may have to go to their backup. So yeah, it's going to be a tough year probably for the Broncos, especially in a division with the Chiefs, who are one of the best teams in football. So we move on to the next game here. We had the Buccaneers and the home debut of Tom Brady for the Tampa Bay Bucks, and they took down the Carolina Panthers 31-17. Another name, Leonard Fournette, stepped up on his new team after not being really involved in the first week. They really gave it to Fournette and Brady, and they both played pretty well this week.
Yeah, like I said, there's just a lot of weapons there. Mike Evans is there, and I think a Goodwin's there. You got Gronk and OJ Howard. Yeah, they're just a lot of good names there, and Fournette's going to help them establish more of the running game. That Ronald Jones is kind of like a slashing type back, but Fournette's a big back. Good win. Tampa, Carolina needs to be careful because they're like kind of where other teams are 0-2. You don't want to make that third loss. So hopefully Carolina bounces back and they have some talent too. But yeah, good job by, like you said, a good win at home for a team that could do some damage this year in the NFC. Well, here they come, the Washington football team. Do you think they got the second win? Nope, they didn't. They lost. The Cardinals 30-15 in a nice victory for Kyler Murray-led Arizona Cardinals. And Derek, I've said it before, DeAndre Hopkins is going to be a problem being covered in Arizona.
Yeah. I will say real quick that Christian McCaffrey did go down for Carolina, so that'll be tough for Carolina moving forward. Yeah, DeAndre Hopkins has really been very good so far in the first two games. 9 targets, the most on the team. Caught 8 of them. Kenyon Drake is playing pretty well. The running back for Arizona. Kyler Murray, 2 rushing touchdowns. They've been looking very good. Be interested to see once those division games start, who steps up above the other with the 49ers, the Rams, the Seahawks. Yeah. So
Arizona gave the Niners 1 loss.
Yeah, that's true. Yes. Tough game for Washington, so we'll see where they move forward here. A couple guys talented on that team: Antonio Gibson, Terry McLaurin. So we'll see if they can win a couple more games in the coming weeks. Our next game we have is the Kansas City Chiefs taking down the LA Chargers. That was a very close game. It actually went into overtime. The Chiefs were shut down a little bit, 23-20, but they ended up pulling out the overtime field goal in victory over the Chargers.
Yeah, it looked like LA was able to score early. You had 14 in 2 quarters, but the Chiefs were kind of silent in the first quarter, and LA probably did a good job on Mahomes. I didn't really watch much of the game, but I do see that Harrison Butker had a big 58-yard field goal. And Derek, even in a video game, that's hard to do. Really, really good win by Kansas City. They don't want to go 1-1, not seeing what Baltimore's doing, Arizona, some of these top teams, Seattle, Green Bay. But, yeah, good job by Kansas City. I think we just have to remember Patrick Mahomes on the field equals a lot of wins. So I think that's what you got to say about Kansas City. Well, the next game was a game I was looking forward to, and that was the Houston Texans at now 0-2 because they actually took a loss, 33-16 Baltimore. And Derek, Lamar Jackson, I said it to somebody else, he doesn't just run well, he really throws the ball well.
Yeah, we mentioned how his completion percentage seems to be up near the top. And, I mean, he was 18 of 24, but that's all you need. You can't be turning the ball over, which he's not. And now you look at the stats and no one really jumped out, but it was really a combination of everything. They had 230 rushing yards, the Baltimore did. Gus Edwards, 73, Mark Ingram, 55, Lamar Jackson, 54, J.K. Dobbins, 48. It just adds up, and I'm sure they had a ton of the clock in their favor. So 33-16, yeah, they took them down. And interested to see where the Texans go from here, because obviously they're struggling a little bit. David Johnson couldn't get going. Maybe losing DeAndre Hopkins meant a lot more than originally thought, because you thought someone could step in like a Will Fuller. But they seem to be struggling out there in Houston, 0-2. Very big Monday night game, which was a very good game between the Seahawks and New England Patriots. And a very close game came down to the wire, but the Seahawks pulled it out 35-30. Was that a game Tom Brady would have won? I don't know. But if you look at the final play, maybe that was what the case was.
Yeah, I mean, we're always going to second guess games like this, right? I mean, what a good game. Both teams scored early and often in the first two quarters. Seattle separated themselves in the third. And again, Derek, we've said it all along on this show, on the Timeout show, is that Russell Wilson is as close to as good as anybody in the NFL. He's got weapons galore. And to put up, again, almost 40 points, like I'm telling you, I want to see Rodgers versus Wilson. I want to see it. I can't wait. Green Bay versus Seattle. It's going to be something to watch. But yeah, no, New England looked good, and I'm a little scared about the pick I made with Buffalo. But yeah, that's going to be interesting too. Yeah, New England looked pretty good, and Cam Newton looks very comfortable, kind of scary, as athletic as he can be, and as good as he can be. But just remember something. I don't want to take away from the Seattle win, but I will say Cam Newton is a hothead. If they start losing, it's going to be different. So we'll have to see with that. But Seattle, nice win, and I'm excited to see what the Seahawks do the rest of the way. So the last game was played on Monday night, and Derek, this was a really good game, and I'm a little surprised, but the Las Vegas Raiders took the win 34-24. What did you have to think about my endorsed Drew Brees?
Yeah, and they're starting to say maybe there's some chinks in the armor that are really showing with Drew Brees. Like maybe he won't be able to continue forever here, and they put up. I mean, 24 points isn't nothing, but the defense doesn't usually give up less than that, so they're going to need to score more. Now, obviously, there was no Michael Thomas, so you can't really say that they were at full strength, losing to the Raiders. But hey, great for Las Vegas being at home, the home stadium for the first time, and Derek Carr played very well. Darren Waller, the tight end, had 16 targets and 12 receptions. Josh Jacobs, another good game. You said it. The Raiders were your sleeper team, and they look like they could do something. Will they be on the level of the Chiefs? Probably not, but in a weaker division with the Broncos and the Chargers, they could win a bunch of games and finally make the playoffs there for John Gruden.
I would not be surprised at all. Well, Derek, that was the NFL recap. And just so people know, and I'm sure Derek will go over it one more time, we are going to come and do another show on Tuesday. It'll be posted later after that, but it'll be an MLB show about the playoff picture. And there's some big games still left to play. And just so everyone knows, my Phillies are in a very tough series getting down in Tampa Bay this weekend. So I hope it all goes well there. But, damage might have been done earlier. So we'll see. But, yeah, no, this was an enjoyable show, and I'm hoping everybody listens, comments, and likes. And, Derek?
Yep. As Joe said, we're probably going to be doing the show on Monday night because that'll be the day after all the games end, and hopefully all the playoff scenarios are set up for baseball. Since we've been away from baseball for a couple weeks now, we're going to jump back in it, and I believe the next two shows are probably going to be centric around baseball, especially with the playoffs starting. Now, look for that on Tuesday. We're still working on the Facebook page. That should be out for a similar time with this episode. So we'll be jumping away from football, but feel free to throw some questions, comments down, and ask some football questions, whether it be high school, college, or NFL. We can jump into them. But moving forward, or if you have some baseball questions, maybe you want to rag on Joe a little about the Phillies, feel free to throw that in the comments. But I hope everyone enjoyed our 3-tiered football episode with high school, college, and NFL. Maybe we'll get out to see some high school games in the next coming weeks. But I hope everyone enjoyed. Stay safe. This has been the Time Out Show with Derek and Joe. Take care. Stay safe. God bless.